is not only about reducing carbon emission, it also brings a decent economic return. Low carbon fuel standard credits are awarded based on the innovative method. The current price per credit is around $200, hence there will be about $4 million gain per year for Chevron.
In 2018, the EPA stated that 180 million tons of CO2 equivalent were emitted from the refineries in the United States. A lot of these Scope 1 emissions can be reduced through short, medium, long-term solutions that also involve cutting costs and increasing efficiency simultaneously. Firstly, R&D and innovation needs to be even more accelerated. Chevron can stay competitive in the industry by initiating a new wave of R&D through investments and initiatives. Every breakthrough could mean more revenue and more solutions to customers, clients, and shareholders. Reducing flaring is also a short-term change that can be started and improved over time in the next few decades. 100 billion cubic meters of gas were flared in 2017, causing 300 million tons of CO2 to be emitted. A study by the US Department of Energy found that 26% of the country's energy used in refineries could be cut using new technologies, including data analytics and AI. Digitization of the oil field is one of the biggest short-term changes that can be done. The multiple benefits are further risk mitigation, reinforced safety and training, large data collection, and many more. This leads to a more versatile oil field and will facilitate the gradual green transition and could generate a further 1.6 trillion in global revenue thanks to greater efficiencies. The timeline associated is about 6 months to start the acceleration in R&D and 12 months and more for large-scale digitization. In terms of cost, the upfront costs are quite high, but the return is actually worth it. Up to $100 billion in E&P saved per year in the industry. In terms of CO2 emissions, about 14% Scope 1 emission reduction through reduced flaring. Next slide.
In the medium term, another way to tackle Scope 1 emissions is through generation plant system, which uses waste gas that would otherwise go to flaring and natural gas that the plant would use for heating to produce power, heat, cooling, and possibly steam. This would not only reduce CO2 produced, but would also maximize efficiency and lead to more flexible power sources. Next slide. This would take between 2 and 4 years to complete with a fixed investment of $3.5 million. However, the return to investment will be reached between 3 and 4 years, even accounting for abatement costs. It has an abatement potential of 100 million metric tons of CO2 per year. In the long term, this through generation can be
please wrap up last thought.
Okay, through generation can be upgraded with gas switching reforming to produce hydrogen, which can also easily be retrofitted for CO2 capture by adding a CO2 compression train with the 400 million metric tons of CO2 per year abated potentially. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much. So that begins the 5-minute Q&A session with the judges. Judges, if you have any questions.
I've been kind of helping these problems along throughout yesterday. So if Kamal or Barbara, you guys want to go first, because I've been speaking to the teams throughout, so I can go on last.
Yeah, I'll start. So well done. I will tell you right up front, what I really liked is your short, medium, long, because I think that's the reality of this. I had a question for you. Going back to what had been done is how did you think about the intermittency of solar, and was there do you feel like that was optimized, or was there anything else to be done on that? And were there any additional projects using renewable power that you thought could move the needle?
I might have a short answer. In terms of the intermittency, we did observe the fact that large batteries were used, about 20 megawatt hours of capacity. that could be used during these downtimes. And also over the long term, if we might produce some hydrogen, we can integrate that into the ecosystem and maybe become, the oil field could become even more self-integrated and self-dependent. And this can make a really better ecosystem for us to rely on.
Also with like the tree generation, it would be possible to produce power, so that could make up for lower outputs of the solar system, and that this would reduce dependency on the grid. And otherwise, the extra, if in periods of like high solar production, the power produced through tree generation could be just sent to the grid and sold to the grid. So it's another revenue source.
Okay, thank you.
And for other like renewable like solutions, we didn't really we looked at the area. There was like water stream and like a walk going by, but there were already 2 hydrogen power plants over the course of it. So we thought that putting another one might be redundant.
Thank you. This is Kemal. Great presentation. The last slide, which you didn't have much time, is the MAC curves, which was very interesting. For the long term, again, I really like the short, midterm, and long term. For the long term, when you looked at the MAC curve, did you identify any new technology development that you think can have an impact on reduction of the abatement opportunity there?
Yeah, so we found this gas switching reforming, which is a new way of producing hydrogen, different from steam methane reforming. And this gas switching reforming actually has the potential to be adapted and be integrated with carbon capture. And because since carbon capture projects by themselves are very expensive and need like a lot of like carbon production, we thought that this would be a nice alternative to have one on a smaller scale, and because it would be connected to something that is already built. And the gas switching reforming would therefore also allow to produce blue hydrogen, which in the short term probably is like going to be the main source of hydrogen rather than green hydrogen, because green hydrogen like production is still pretty expensive. So in the meantime, while the demand for hydrogen increases and green hydrogen is not yet cost effective, we thought that this could be a good idea of like increasing revenue for the company while diversifying, especially in a decarbonizing economy.
A very good answer. It's amazing. And my last question for you is actually a question for us. Barbara is the our innovation officer for Chevron. She's the VP of Innovation and head of Chevron Technology Ventures, and we are in that group, both Jen and I. What question do you have for Chevron, looking at the study, and it may help you with the finals, the answer that you'll get from Barbara, or also it will show you the insight that you may have to the problem.
I'm sorry, that actually was the 5 minutes.
Time to start wrapping up.
Yes. So I have to let in the next team. These are going to go quite fast. But EverGreen, thank you very much for your time. You may head out, and best of luck.